Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, yesterday was an historic day for many, many reasons. The papal conclave in the Vatican selected the 267th pontiff. It is going to be Pope Leo XIV, as he is now called, Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost. Born in America. That's right, born in Chicago. He is the first American-born pope in the history of the entire papacy. In fact, he is the first pope not just from America, but from North America. And many in the media, including President Trump, whose pride obviously was enhanced, his American pride, beaming at the prospect now that he will be meeting soon the first pope in history who was born in the United States. Listen now to President Trump after news, and it was historic news. No one thought Prevost was going to win. Many thought there were going to be other candidates who were ahead of him, other leading contenders. Prevost came out of nowhere. And to the shock of the people in St. Peter's Square, to the shock of people around the world, and to the shock of people across the United States, it is an American pope. Listen now to President Trump speaking to reporters outside the White House upon news of the election of Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, now Leo XIV. Roll cut 12, Mike.
I do. Mr. President. What is that? They have already spoken to us, and we'll see what happens. But again, to have the Pope from the United States of America, that's a great honor. That's a great honor. When are you going to welcome the Pope? I'm watching, and they said he's from America. I said, that's great.
So he also said the same thing on Truth Social. This is a great honor, he said, for the United States. He is proud. His American pride, as I said, is beaming. And he now says he plans to meet him soon. And he said it will be an honor to shake his hand and to meet the first pope who comes from the United States in history, literally in the history of the papacy. And look, there's no question about it. When I first heard the news, I was stunned. I was surprised, and in one sense, pleasantly surprised that this was an American-born pope, as I said, from Chicago. However, to be brutally honest with all of you, I began to look more and more into his background. I frankly had not heard of Robert Francis Prevost before, as most Catholics around the world didn't. I knew the leading contenders, I knew some of the key players, but Cardinal Prevost, now again Leo XIV, I had not heard of. The more I researched, the more I found out. Again, if I'm not here to speak the truth, then there's no point in me being behind this microphone. The less enthusiastic I became. Now, I want to say this. He is a new pope, just elected yesterday. He is 69 years old. By all accounts, he is a very good, decent, humble man. And I truly pray for him and his papacy. I want this pope to succeed. I really want to stress this. But the more I looked into it, it confirmed all of my worst fears. They're all of these tweets now that he has issued over the last 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years are all starting to resurface. This is a leftist pope. There's no question. He is anti-Trump. He is anti-MAGA. He is pro-open borders. In fact, he is a self-styled left-wing globalist in the mold of late Pope Francis. In fact, he owes everything to Francis. Francis basically plucked him from obscurity and promoted him to one of the senior ranks as cardinals. And this is why, if you noticed in his first address yesterday, after it was announced, here we now have a new Pope, Pope Leo XIV. He kept thanking Francis over and over and over again. That has never been done before. In the 2,000 years of the papacy, you never thank, on your opening speech, you don't even mention your predecessor. Never mind thank or praise your predecessor. Why? Because everything is being born anew. It is a new papacy, infused in theory by the Holy Spirit. And so you talk about what you want to do for the church, what your message for the church is. You never mention your predecessor. He did. He did again and again and again. And I think the reason is obvious. What Francis did, especially in the last several years of his papacy, as his health waned, was he wanted to cement his left-wing legacy, his almost revolutionary transformation of the church into a much more globalist, progressive, clearly socialist direction. There's no question. And so what he did was he stacked the College of Cardinals with essentially fellow travelers, with acolytes, people who thought like him, people who believed in exactly the same in terms of the progressive wing of the church, the left wing of the church. And so what he did was he started to promote people from all over the world. And so they stacked the College of Cardinals. And so we were going to have another left-wing pope. It was almost inevitable. And that's the result. That's what we got now with Pope Leo XIV. Now, furthermore, just so that you know, this pope, yes, was born in America. God bless him. But he has spent most of his life in Peru. His church years dominated by him being a missionary and then eventually a bishop in Peru. He has Peruvian citizenship. So he's not just an American citizen, he's also a citizen of Peru. Furthermore, he also spent some time in the Vatican. Now, his job at the Vatican, he was very close with Pope Francis. Very, very close. He saw his role as furthering and perpetuating the legacy of Francis. As I said on X yesterday, and I want to repeat it, Pope Leo XIV is Pope Francis 2.0. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. And as these tweets now, and there's more and more of them that are surfacing, what they clearly now show is he does not believe in borders, like Pope Francis. He believes that there should not be any secure borders, in particular when it comes to the United States. He has been a staunch opponent of Trump's border and immigration crackdown. He is against mass deportations. In fact, he is a defender of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the quote-unquote Maryland man, the El Salvadorian illegal, the MS-13 gangbanger, the human trafficker and wife beater. There is a post that he retweeted in which someone said about Kilmar Abrego Garcia, have you no conscience? Do you not care for his suffering? Do you not care for his pain? And all I'm thinking is, what about the suffering of all of his victims? What about the suffering of MS-13? What about the suffering of the victims of illegal alien crime? How come nobody weeps for them? And why doesn't the church weep for them? But it doesn't matter. He is in the vein of Francis. And so, he doesn't believe there should be any borders. He supports unlimited third world immigration. He is against Trump. He is against almost all of Trump's policies. He schooled J.D. Vance, which to me was incredible, when earlier this year, J.D. Vance, citing what's called the principle of subsidiarity, which is at the heart of Catholic teaching, which is, yes, of course you love everybody, but you love your family, then you love, your neighbor, your community, your country. In other words, there are sort of levels of love. The closer it is to you, the more you love that person. He came out and said, no, Jesus doesn't rank anybody's love. In other words, you should love someone in, Peru, just as much as your own wife or your own husband or your own children. It's pure Marxist globalism. That's what this Pope has been peddling, at least up until his election right now. And I suspect we're going to get more. He is a big defender of Black Lives Matter and called for everyone to honor George Floyd and for an end to racism and racial oppression in America. In other words, he is a man of the left, by the left, for the left. Okay, listen now, just a little bit of sound from yesterday as Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, the first American-born Pope in history, emerges for the first time, now as Pope Leo XIV, to greet the crowd at St. Peter's Square. Roll cut 12A, a mic. He was visibly very emotional. You can tell he did not expect this to happen, but it did. He was catapulted now into the papacy. Many in the crowd were very happy that a pope was elected, obviously. It was done on the fourth ballot, the second day, which is usually par for the course. But apparently he had a strong position almost from the beginning. So the liberal bloc or the progressive bloc within the church settled on him as essentially the continuation of Francis, that he was going to be their left-wing candidate, and if they voted together in unison, they would get the two-thirds majority that they needed. And so essentially Francis's strategy worked. He stacked the College of Cardinals with his people, and these progressive, left-wing, open borders globalists, and that's what they are, got their guy to now be the next Holy See. He will now be the next Pope. Now, I think there's no question. The media, the liberal fake news media, which is rabidly anti-Christian, rabidly anti-Catholic, and increasingly, by the way, very anti-Semitic and anti-Jewish. But let that go for now, okay? Because we're talking about the Pope, the Catholic Church, and Christianity. They celebrated Pope Leo XIV. Now, why? Is it because he is against abortion? No. In fact, to be fair to Pope Leo XIV, he seems to be doctrinally more conservative than Francis. He's, from everything that we've heard about him and read about him, he's actually on a harder line on abortion than Francis. He's against the LGBTQ plus agenda and transgenderism. So that flies against everything the media believes in and pushes and peddles. So why? Why were they smiling ear to ear? Why were they championing and celebrating Pope Leo XIV? Because on climate change, he's a man of the left. On Black Lives Matter and issues of race, he's a man of the left. And on the big one, on the issue of migrants, of illegal aliens, of immigration, on borders, he is a man of the radical hard left. And in many ways, and they understand this very well, one of the reasons these left-wing pro-Francis cardinals voted for Pope Leo XIV, and because it was always said before, it would be almost unthinkable for an American to become pope, for many, many reasons. One of them being is cardinals have always said, we don't want to have a pope from one of the great global superpowers. We just don't want to do that. We never want to seem like we're a pawn of one of the great superpowers in the world. So it was almost like any pope but from the United States, or any pope from, not that there are many Catholics in Russia, but during the Soviet Union. In other words, this would just be considered too much. They had no problem electing an American pope this time. Why? Why? Because they want to elevate an American who's a leftist, who's an anti-Trumper, who's anti-MAGA, who has publicly chastised Trump repeatedly, publicly chastised J.D. Vance, who is a Catholic, in fact, a Catholic convert. So they want to elect someone who is going to be almost a spiritual, moral counterweight and bulwark to Trump. And the media knows this. So they can then say an American pope is standing up to Donald Trump. An American pope is saying his position on illegal immigration is un-Christian. It's un-Catholic. It's not charitable. It's not what Jesus would do. And they're going to use this papacy, mark my words, as a stick or a bludgeon to constantly whack Trump and his policies over the head with. So I understand Trump as a patriot, as a proud American, saying, wow, it's a great honor to have an American as a pope. But I think he's going to learn very quickly, this pope is not going to be your ally. There's no question about it. In fact, he's going to be his foil. He's going to be a critic. And his enemies are going to use this pope like they used Francis to attack Trump and attack MAGA again and again and again. And so I want to open it up to you, the great audience of Kuhner Country. We now have an American pope. You can also text us 70470, 70470. This is from 617. Jeff, so let me get this straight. We now have an American pope who is anti-America. Perfect. Yep. I hate to say it, but that's what it is. So he's against borders in general. He's against Trump in particular. MAGA, J.D. Vance. I can run down the whole list. He's pro-Black Lives Matter. But the big thing is he believes that even deporting Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a sin. That deporting MS-13 gangbangers is a sin. Having any kind of an border enforcement is a sin. According to him, I'm not kidding, Jesus loves the migrants. Jesus is with the migrants. And you can't love your community or your family or your country more than you love these migrants. And so basically what he's saying is you have to have your borders wide open and just let people keep pouring in. That is the humane, compassionate thing to do. It's what Jesus would do. It's very radical. It's a form of Marxism. It's clearly, he's a globalist through and through. And this is what we're going to have now. Again, it's a continuation of Francis. I don't want to repeat myself, but meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Although maybe even worse. In some areas, a little better, but in other areas, could be even worse. Now, let me just say one last thing, and then I want to go to the phone lines. 617-266-6868. The Italian media is now saying, this is how they describe Pope Leo XIV. He is the most un-American of Americans. That his time in Rome, his time with Pope Francis, He has consistently talked about his shame for America, that he believes it's a deeply racist country, a deeply sexist country. Our history of slavery and genocide is something he says we should be ashamed of. And again, he is very pro-Black Lives Matter. He is very sympathetic to the radical left and to the racial left in this country. So we're looking at a papacy that there's no wonder, the Democrats love this guy. It's no wonder CNN and MSNBC and the New York Times are hailing his selection. Now, he, in many ways, identifies more with Peru than he does with the United States. During his church years, he has spent much more time in Peru than he ever did in America. I know he was born here, Chicago, but he has spent decades and decades and decades in Peru. And so if you noticed yesterday, he came out, this is his first address, spoke in Italian, of course, the Vatican is based in Italy, that's fine. Then spoke in Latin, of course, that's traditional. But he then spoke in Spanish. And afterwards, he told the media that was deliberate. That was a nod to his former flock in Chiclayo. Don't confuse it with Chicago. Chiclayo is the city in northern Peru where he was made the bishop of, was a missionary and then a bishop, and eventually elevated to cardinal. But that's where he really cut his teeth for the church. And so he spoke to them in Spanish, saying, like Pope Francis, I will not forget you. I will not forget Latin America. I will not forget the third world. Now, as I pointed out on X, he didn't say a word in English. He spoke in Latin, fine. Italian, fine. Honestly, Spanish, fine. But if you're going to be the first American Pope, and the media's playing you up as this American Pope, you can't say a word in English? I'm sorry, it bothered me. It did. To me, it set the tone for the rest of his papacy. Hi? I don't know, something. I am from America. I don't know. I'm proud to be from America. I am a son of Chicago. Something? Oh, a phrase, a line, a sentence, something. Instead, nothing. Nothing. And so I was very disappointed. It bothered me. Now look, again, he just was he was just elected as the Pope. I pray for him. I really do. I want him to have a very successful papacy. We are in a very, very difficult time, in very sinister, evil times in the world. We need a steady, holy, wise man in the Vatican and as the Pope. And I hope he rises to the challenge. But if I look at his past, I look at his background, I look at his statements, I look at his comments, I look at his actions, we're looking at another left-wing papacy and another anti-American, anti-Trump, anti-MAGA, pro-open borders, globalist papacy. And to me, that's the last thing America needs, the world needs, and the church needs. But that's me. I want to hear from you, and believe me, I'm open to being persuaded to change my mind. The last thing I want to do is come out against the Pope, the second he was elected. But I'm just telling you, after everything I've seen, I'm worried, and I think there are some ominous signs. But that's me. Again, 617-266-6868. So let me set the table. What do you make of the fact that we now have the first American-born Pope in history? What do you make of Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost as the new Pope, Pope Leo XIV? Are you hopeful? Are you optimistic? And in the long run, do you like this pick or do you not like this pick? 617-266-6868. Dane in South Dakota. You're going to kick us off, Dane. Thanks for holding, and as always, welcome.
Yes, Jeff. As you say, you're not 100% right, and I agree with what you're saying. You're 1,000% right, and I'm going to tell you why. I was born and raised in Chicago, and I'll tell you something. I'm embarrassed to tell people I'm from Chicago. I don't even say it anymore that I'm from Chicago because it's such a liberal murder capital of the world now. That's what it's known for. Anyway, I'm going to make a prediction here, Jeff. I'm going to say by the time this Pope finishes his term, you will see the first Pope in history performing a gay marriage. That's my prediction. And you know, when I was 14 years old, I was in high school in Chicago, and there was one thing I noticed. It stuck in my mind from now until then. There was a St. Mary's school, and there was a baseball game, and the father Sullivan was there, I think his name was. And he was surrounded by all these little young boys, like 6, 8 years old. They were hanging on his leg, and they were hugging him, and he was hugging them. And he had a cigarette dangling. I'll never forget, had a cigarette dangling from his mouth. And and first thing I think, boy, that looks a little strange. I felt uncomfortable looking at it. And later on, years later, there was so many cases in Chicago of priests being prosecuted for pedophilia. And not to say that all priests are pedophilia, but it was a big, big problem, nationwide, as we know. Many, many cases. I'm sure there was plenty in Boston, too. And first and second of all, his agenda, he doesn't control his agenda. The Jesuits, the Catholics, they make his agenda. They tell him what to do. They are going to control him. He thinks he might have his agenda, but let me tell you something. Like you say, this is all about climate change. This is the agenda of the globalists, okay? The whole organization is not what it used to be. It's a facade, as far as I'm concerned. And as far as, Chicago, the only thing left in Chicago that you could be proud of is pizza, Chicago hot dogs, and Italian beef sandwich. What say you, Jeff?
Oh, I agree. Chicago has really declined. Once a great, great American city. And you're right. I mean, the city is falling apart. I mean, the murder rate, it's almost becoming the murder capital, not just of America, the murder capital of the Western Hemisphere. You're right. Outside of the food, the hot dogs and the pizza and the roast beef sandwich, really, what does Chicago have to offer? 617-266-6868 is the number. No, when they first announced an American Pope, let me be brutally honest with all of you, I was thinking, no, could it be Cardinal Burke, who's a brilliant conservative? I said, no, come on, no. And then the moment I heard, it was Robert Francis Prevost, I'm like, who the hell is Robert Francis Prevost? I never heard of the guy. And they said, born in Chicago. And just all I had to hear was born in Chicago, from Chicago. And I'm like, oh, no. Chicago, just the Archdiocese of Chicago, is known as one of the liberal bastions in America. So the second I heard he was from Chicago, I'm thinking, oh, no. He's one of these, Obama Catholics, quote unquote. And then the more I read, and then I began looking at his tweets, and it was one after another. And I'm thinking, it's like installing Joe Biden. Well, I mean, he's cognitively there. So think Joe Biden when he had his marbles. It's like putting Joe Biden in the papacy or Obama in the papacy. That's what you're going to get. It's the illegals, borders are evil, Trump is racist, mass deportations are sinful, the suffering. Always about the criminals, always about the illegals, never about the victims. And so when I saw that, I'm like, well, it's pretty obvious. Francis stacked the College of Cardinals. I mean, I don't, I said it was rigged on X last night. I don't mean rigged as in they stole it. I think it was a legitimate 2/3 majority. I mean rigged in the sense it was just full of his people, Francis's people. And so they were going to get a left-wing pro-Francis Pope. And one last very quick point. I've never seen this before. There's videos now emerging of, then Cardinal Prévost, how obsequious he is about Francis, constantly going on. What a great Pope. What a magnificent Pope. What a special man. You can tell. He's almost like an acolyte of Francis. Someone who was, obviously owes his entire career and promotion to Francis. And then, I've never heard of this, ever. This has never happened in the 2,000 years of the papacy. Whenever, you can look it up, please don't take my word for it. When there's always a new pope announced, he never, ever references, never mind thanking, he never references his predecessor. He's the new pope. It's now his church. He's now the vicar of Christ. He's now the shepherd for Catholics and Christians, and frankly, all over the world. For the way he kept praising Francis, thanking Francis, and honestly, I'm thinking, yeah, because you owe your papacy to him. Essentially, Francis made you, from beyond the grave, Francis made you pope. So the whole thing was honestly demoralizing. I was not happy. Again, I want to be hopeful. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I will pray for him. Anything can happen. The Holy Spirit works in very mysterious ways. But so far, what I see a very left-wing progressive church. And I think it's going to get worse. I agree with Dane in South Dakota. I don't think this is going to heal the divisions in the church. I think this pick is going to exacerbate the divisions in the church. That's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. And I think you're going to see him clashing with Trump again and again and again. And the media is hoping that they can use this fact that he's an American-born pope as a weapon against Trump to turn Pope Leo XIV into a hero of the resistance. That's what they're really... In other words, the Democratic Party is in disarray. Now they may have found their man with the institutional backing of the church to take Trump and his administration head on. That's my fear. We shall see. Jim in Tingsboro. Thanks for holding, Jim, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you? Good morning.
Good. How are you, Jim?
Oh, hey, I'm just waking up, coming to. Yeah, Jeff, really. I mean, the one thing that seems to be skipped over all the time is the fact of separation of church and state. I'm an agnostic. I don't really put any stock in any of the writings of the teachings of the Catholic Church at all, because ever since the 1970s, I can remember a priest who was, I guess the leader of a church. His name was Father Celeste. We dubbed him Father Molest. Well, I cleaned his clock back in the 70s because of it. He got caught red-handed. No. The whole thing is, yeah, of course. They blew the white smoke out. They canonized this clown, the Pope. I have no respect for any of that nonsense in my book. So I really wouldn't be too concerned, and I'm not at all surprised. I knew that they would replace the Pope. Big deal. Hey,
Jim, I'm just curious. The fact that he is an American-born Pope, and the first and only American Pope in the history of the Catholic Church. Is this a great in this sense? Is this a great moment for the United States? Is it a great moment for the American Catholic Church? President Trump came out and said it is a great honor that for the first time ever we have an American in the Vatican at the head of the church. What say you?
Well, I say he's going to regret that statement because it's not going to make any bit of difference in what's going on right now the way it is. And, of course, these liberal moonbats, I think they're all moonbats. Any Catholic is a moonbat.
Well, I mean, Jim, I'm not a moonbat.
I know you know, Jeff, you believe what you want to believe. I'm a live and let live guy. You know, it's up to you how you want to live your life and what you want to believe in. I mean, I could tell you, I put everything in the common sense light. I don't subscribe to any hocus pocus or whatever you want to call it. I mean, I don't even believe in the resurrection. You know, I have a whole different view on that too. I mean, hey, I may be sour in that. Nobody would really agree with it. That's, you know, I mean, like I say, I don't down people to believe what you want to believe.
No, I agree with you, Jim. Jim, look, I mean, you know me, I disagree with you on the church and on God and on Jesus, but let's, you know, that we live in America. I believe in live and let live. I do. I believe in freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of religion, freedom of belief. You're allowed to believe whatever you want to believe. That's the beauty of this country. It's a free country, and I hope it always remains a free country. So, Jim, please, I understand that. No, Jim, look, I think you touched on something. I think Trump may live to regret those words. He spoke from the heart, of course, I understand that. And I understand his pride, believe me, because when I first heard it myself, I'm like, yes, you know, yes, finally, yes. You know, an American now is Pope. But man, now he is not as outspoken as Francis. He's known to be more quiet, just doesn't like the limelight as much, doesn't like the cameras as much. Francis loved to talk. Francis loved to go out and, give interviews to the media and poke Trump and poke MAGA and go after people who were not progressives, even in his own church. You know, everyone says, you know, Francis was so, you know, the man of empathy and compassion. Really? He didn't show much empathy for the Catholics in China when he sold them out in that outrageous deal he signed with Beijing. He sold the Catholics in China right down the river. He didn't show much empathy for traditionalists or conservatives in the church. He persecuted them. He hounded them. He excommunicated them. He tried to marginalize them. The Christians being annihilated and persecuted in Africa, he never said a word about them. So, you know, his empathy, it went towards gays, it went towards lesbians, it went towards people who were pro-abortion, it went towards people who were environmentalists and climate change. It was, you know, transgendered people, Muslims, migrants, illegals. That's where his so-called empathy was. But when fellow Christians and Catholics are getting slaughtered by Islamists all over Africa, silence. Literally, silence. When Catholics are being brutally oppressed by the regime in Beijing and trying to co-opt the church in China, he said nothing. In fact, he accommodated Beijing. And man, did he drop the hammer against conservatives within the church. So, you know, to me, this idea, a man of such empathy. No. He was a very left-wing pope. And to me, I think he's done tremendous institutional damage to the papacy and to the church. Now, we'll see. But this personality-wise, he's very different. He's not as combative as Pope Francis, doesn't like the limelight as much as Pope Francis, doesn't like to give interviews like Pope Francis. So maybe, he'll hold his tongue more and it'll be more of a quiet papacy. We shall see. But so far, I think Francis stacked it and he got the result exactly that he wanted. You couldn't have a more committed Francis progressive Catholic than you do right now with Pope Leo XIV. I mean, Francis has got to be laughing from the grave. So he transformed the church during his life, and now he wants to continue to transform the church after he's gone. Tony in Gloucester. Thanks for holding, Tony, and welcome.
Thank you, Jeff.
Hi, Tony.
Well, we know we knew it was stacked. We knew it was going to be what it's going to be. We prayed. We hoped otherwise. Now, where do I start? My wife brought up a great point some time ago about all the illegals coming in, and very true. She said the reason they're here is the Catholic Church in those countries has failed them. The Catholic Church in all those third world countries, they all left. In Venezuela, there's one remaining priest. And the other part about this is what happened to the days when the church stood up to these communist regimes? The church used to have a great group that was, that wouldn't buckle to the communists in any way. But that's gone now. And I think the whole thing was planned. The church was in on it in, taking the priests out of these countries so that the people were, hold on, so that the people were in a position where they didn't have any, they didn't have the faith because the church wasn't there. And, that's a biggie. But we know for sure, Archbishop Viagano, good for his papal nuncio here, friend of Trump, and he talks constantly about the globalists in the church and how they're taking over. And I have one thing, if Trump is listening, if he starts bashing, the new Pope bashing America, say to him, well, if you hate America so much, why don't you renounce your citizenship? Since you hate us so much, why would you want to be associated with us? I bet you that would drive him all nuts.
That's an excellent point, Tony, on every count. No, look, I agree with you. I said this to someone once, and it was a very liberal Catholic, and they didn't know what to say. Love the migrants, we have to be with the migrants. I said, why doesn't the church speak out against these socialist dictatorships, these Marxist tyrants who are causing all of this economic misery and poverty and oppression that is driving people to leave their countries? I said, the church used to be magnificent in how they spoke out against communist regimes and corrupt socialist regimes. They used to always denounce human rights violations, corruption, persecuting ordinary people. Instead, now, they're silent. Venezuela is a deeply Catholic country. Where is the church against Chavez before? Now against Maduro? Nowhere. Look at what the Castros have done to Cuba. Look at these Central American countries that have been failed by these socialist strongmen over and over and over again. Yet, where is the church? Nowhere. So, how about criticizing the people that have created the conditions for these migrants to leave? I don't know which piece it was. I was reading multiple pieces on the Pope yesterday. And they said, when he was in northern Peru and as a missionary and then later as a bishop, he had a front row seat to the misery of these migrants and what's driving them to come to the United States. And I remember as I read this and I said, and did he ever speak out against the Peruvian socialist regime who implemented the very policies that destroyed Peru? No. How about he had a front row seat to that? Did he say anything? No. Now, it's always America has to take him in. America has to take him in. Well, I'm sorry. Why doesn't the Vatican take him in? Here, yesterday. Did you notice yesterday? Here, just look at yesterday. Okay? It was packed. Packed, obviously. St. Peter's Square. Did you see one illegal alien? Was there one migrant? Not one. You know why? Because it is illegal for illegal aliens to enter Vatican City. So, you look at the Vatican itself. 40 feet high walls. They're going on about, oh, you can't build a wall. Walls are immoral. Yeah, if walls are immoral, then tear down all those walls that are protecting the Vatican. So here you have the Vatican, which is walled off, insular, wealthy, privileged. I'm using the left's term now. Very privileged. That it is illegal for any illegal alien to enter Vatican City. And if you're an illegal and you decide to try to get into Vatican City, you know what happens to you? They deport you. Gone. So the question I had for Francis is the question now I have for Pope Leo. If deportations are so wrong, if cracking down on illegal aliens is so wrong, if having secure borders is so wrong, then if having walls are so wrong, then how come you do it? That's what you do. That's literally what you do. You're a bunch of hypocrites. And look, let's cut to the chase. Why did they elect him? They elected him to be a bulwark against Trump, to be a critic against Trump. There's no question now, okay? But they also elected him for something else. And I think that's why they said, we actually, frankly, on this one, we need an American Pope. We need, one, to counter Trump. Two, money. Money. It's all about the money now. Because of these massive sex abuse scandals that have been plaguing the church for decades, which Francis in particular, I'm just calling it the way I see it, covered up, swept under the rug. So it's been payout after payout after payout, settlement after settlement after settlement. The papacy, the Vatican, people don't know this. Their finances are in a mess. The Roman Catholic Church is now on the verge of bankruptcy. It is almost a bankrupt church. Why? Because they've had to shell out so much money to the victims of these sex abuse scandals that the church deliberately tried to suppress and cover up. So they are now desperate for money. They're desperate for cash. And the church now, and it's not just the Catholic Church, the Lutherans, I can give you all the groups. There's now a big Jewish organization. It's not just the Catholics. Okay, it's Lutherans, there's a Jewish group, there's many of them, Protestants, Orthodox Christians now are getting in on the racket. Okay, there's a big Orthodox Christian group as well. They have now become modern day human traffickers. Catholic Charities, these non-governmental organizations, getting not millions, literally billions of dollars, billions with a B, to bring migrants across borders, not just into the United States, all across Europe, into Australia, into New Zealand, into Canada, wherever you can move people, there they are. So you needed an American Pope because they need the money that they can get from an American Pope who now is going to push for even more open borders, more migration, more illegal immigration, so they can rack up more money and charge more money. That's what this is all about. They need the migrants to line their pockets because their coffers are empty. Now, I'm sorry. That's not the Holy Spirit. That's not praying and choosing a pope with the eyes on God and what's best for the church and Catholics and Christians all over the world. So this is the pickle now the church is in. And, you mentioned, it's pronounced Vigano. I know when we Americanize it with Vegano, but literally it's Vigano. Look what Pope Francis did, late Pope Francis did to Vigano. Archbishop Vigano. He excommunicated him. For telling the truth. So look how intolerant he was towards conservatives and traditionalists. So let me ask you, Pope Leo XIV, is he a pro-life warrior who is going to return the church to its fundamental roots? Or is he an open borders globalist who has been installed to counter Trump? 617-266-6868 is the number. Carrie in West Bridgewater. Thanks for holding, Carrie, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi.
I think most people, were anxiously awaiting to see who the next pope was going to be. And yesterday at work, when I kept checking my phone and saw, there's the white smoke. Who is it going to be? And I prayed. I said, please let it be a conservative, pro-life, pro-church, pro-Christian Pope. That would be beautiful, because I was not a fan of Pope Francis. And I said, maybe they'll get it right this time. And then when I saw he was an American, my heart sank a little bit. And then the first thing I read about him before his name was even announced was that he was, quote, pro-union and a liberal from Chicago. And that's when I knew. I said, oh no, this isn't going to be good for any of us. Jeff, I'm not even Catholic. I'm an Episcopalian, which isn't even a church anymore, frankly. And I find more in common with the Catholic teaching. So, this has always been important to me. And then you started seeing the tweets, the anti-Trump, the anti-Vance, the anti-American, open borders. I wonder, Jeff, if because these men, they don't have wives, they don't have daughters, that they can't really grasp the seriousness of allowing your country to be flooded with illegal alien migrants who frankly have a completely different culture when it comes to women and the treatment of women, that they can't really grasp the danger that this poses to America. And I also think, too, that the socialist countries blame the United States for their poverty. They don't blame their socialist policies. They blame the United States for their poverty and their troubles. They always have. So this was disheartening, to say the least. I'm not pleased with this selection of this man. I wish him well, but I'm leery. Let's put it that way.
Oh, you expressed my sentiments to a T. Completely, Carrie. You and I are so on the same wavelength. No, look, it's not even because, the church has, been for borders and countries and nation states and, frankly, against unlimited immigration for thousands of years and has stood up to radical Islam for thousands of years. So it's not a question of whether, priests are celibate and that's why. No. There's a Marxist doctrine now, an ideology that has been slowly sweeping the intellectual leadership of the church. Not the grassroots, not ordinary Catholics who go to church every Sunday. In fact, they're quite conservative. But it's people like Francis and people, for example, Pope Leo, he's got a PhD in canon law. He's a doctorate. He's a doctor. He's a doctor in theology. And he's immersed in all of these progressive Marxist doctrines. So here, take J.D. Vance. You mentioned it. J.D. Vance mentioned the core Catholic teaching of subsidiarity. And what that means in plain English is, right, there's a hierarchy, a natural order. And even in one's sentiments and one's affections. So, for example, The family is autonomous in Catholic teaching. Why? Because the family is the basic unit of society. It's also, how do I say this? Look, I love my wife. I love my children. I love them more, I'm sorry, than I do my neighbor. Not that I hate my neighbor, far from it. Why? Because she's my wife. She's my spouse. These are my children. So I have a natural, stronger bond and allegiance and love for them. However, I do love my neighbor. And of course, because I know my neighbor and I'm friends with my neighbor, I have a stronger bond to my neighbor than I do, say, to my community. Why? Because I interact with my neighbor on a regular basis. Neighbor means friend. Okay, it doesn't have to literally be your neighbor. But I mean like your close friends. Then I have a stronger bond to my community than I do, say, to even the country. Why? Well, because it's my community. I mean, I see people all the time. And of course, I have a strong attachment to my country above that of any other country in the world. And so J.D. Vance was saying, no, there's nothing unchristian about our border policies. Of course, we love people all over the world. We wish them the best. But my loyalty is to my family, to my neighbor, to my community, and of course to my country. And he comes out, this is then when he was Cardinal Prevost, and corrects J.D. Vance. This was earlier this year. And he says, you're wrong. Literally, that's what he said. You're wrong. Jesus doesn't rank love. Now, think about how radical what he just said. It's Marxist. It's pure Marxism. It's what he's saying is, you're supposed to love some illegal from El Salvador. Here, this guy that he was weeping for, Abrego Garcia. I am supposed to love an MS-13 gangbanger who I don't know from a hole in the wall, a wife beater and a human trafficker, as much as my own wife, as much as my Ashton and my Ava, as much as my nephews, my sisters, my sisters-in-law, my deepest, closest friends, my own fellow citizens. Now, that's pure, unadulterated Marxism and globalism. By the way, that's heresy. And this guy has a PhD in canon law? So, no, now you're trying to make Jesus into Karl Marx. That's what Marx said, that the family is nothing, that your allegiance should never be to your family or to your neighbor or to your friend or to your country. It should be to the international proletariat, the working class. Strangers. You're supposed to love strangers as much as your own flesh and blood. It's unnatural. This is from 508. Jeff, come on, man. As Joe Biden would put it, it's only been day one he's been Pope. Give the guy a break. I'm sorry. I'm just calling it the way I see it. I mean, really, I want the guy, I swear, I want the guy to succeed. I really do. But I'm like, if past his prologue, I don't know. This doesn't look very good here, but okay. 617-266-6868. So let me ask all of you, the fact that he's an American Pope, born in America, raised in America, at least until his early 20s, is that something you're proud of? Is it something the United States should be proud of? And is this now going to lead to a revitalization, not just of the Catholic Church, but a moral, spiritual revival here in America? Are you proud that the current Pope is now made in the USA? 617-266-6868 is the number. Jay in Dedham. Thanks for holding, Jay, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi,
I'm
Jay.
a good Christian like you. I have a lot of beliefs as well concerning the church. You've made some wonderful points concerning this Pope and the policy that you may or may not meet. My basic point is, I was once told I should have been a priest, and I studied, but when I was going through it, I turned to the Monsignor, and I said, one thing I have to tell you is, I said, I cannot continue. And he said, why? I said, because I'm too worldly. And he laughed and said, I understand, Jim. As I progressed through life, I started to see things that affected my faith. Okay, I shouldn't be. I'm a miracle that I was even born. Let me put it that way. So I decided to start at my local church. I started to teach kids their pre-confirmation classes. All about Jesus, and I have a different way of telling them different things. But that's beside the point. The point I'm trying to make is, in the beginning, you know that Jesus was tested many times, and the one that struck out more than anything was, they gave him a coin, and they said, whose face is on this coin? And he said, Caesar's. And he said, give unto Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God. The things that we should give to God, he should be concerned with our soul, Joe. That's the eternal part of us. Politics, look, the apostles traveled. Many were, they weren't treated in a very nice way, because other people believed about other things. Right now, it confuses me sometimes just to think about it, but I look at the world right now, or this country, many facets as far as Christianity is concerned. There are other people who believe in other faiths. Those that don't believe it, they're atheists. That's fine. But to turn around and condemn someone who's the head of this country, the president of this country, is beyond the scope of what he's trying to convey to people. Peru is a different country. You know what Peru is. Very poor. The people, they're all pretty Christian or Catholics. But what's going on, Jeff? I don't understand why people don't understand. And I don't like this situation, because if he's the liberal that I think he is, okay, he's pushing for things that he should not be dealing with. He should be dealing with our soul as far as, molestation. Look, my son played baseball with a boy who was always angry all through high school. And he kept saying, I don't know why he's so angry all the time. Well, we come to find out many years later that a priest transported him across the state line and molested him. So you see, I don't know, Jeff. I try to understand what is in front of us as far as this situation is concerned.
Oh, no, you nailed it. No, look, Jay, I think it's a very important call. Your call now is really a very important call, because you're saying out loud what many Catholics and, frankly, many Christians and many Americans are thinking, okay, whether they're religious or not religious. Why? And it started with the last papacy, okay, went Francis, but now we'll see what's going to happen with Pope Leo XIV. But as a cardinal, we have a record, and this is what he did as Cardinal Prévost. Why are you constantly sticking your nose in America's internal political affairs? The issue of illegal immigration has nothing to do with one soul. It doesn't. So why are you getting involved in, who Americans should support, who they should vote, who should they not vote for? Why are you now concerned with becoming a darling of the media left to stand there and oppose Trump's democratic mandate? He's not a dictator. He won the election. He won the election. He won the popular vote. He won the Electoral College, in fact, by a landslide. He won all 7 swing states, and his mandate was clear. Stop the invasion at the border, secure the border, and start deporting these criminal illegal aliens. Nothing complicated. And yet, so what? You're going to go against the people of the United States? You're going to try to reverse the election? You're going to try to undo the will of the people? And you call yourself a pope? Or whatever. You call yourself a man of God, a cardinal? So the church is increasingly getting involved in things, politics, that are none of its concern. Now, you look at Pope Francis. If you want me to sum it up in one sentence, Pope Francis prioritized left-wing politics over biblical theology and doctrine. Let me repeat that. That's what he did. He prioritized left-wing politics over biblical theology and doctrine. And I feel it as a Catholic who goes to church every single Sunday, and I'm in the pews, and I'm not trashing my local priest. He's a nice man. He means well. But, when he does speak out from the pulpit on anything, it's always in favor of illegal aliens. Okay, that's number one. Number two, they're always asking me for money. You're sitting there and it's always, we need money for this, we need money for that. And I'm like, look, I don't want to come to the Salvation Army. I spend an hour a week with you in the house of God for my soul and my wife and my children, obviously. But my soul needs to be tended to, because ultimately that's what's eternal. That's what's going to live beyond the grave. That's, infinite, forever. So increasingly, and I think that, you look at the pews and it's getting, it's dwindling. Church attendance keeps going down and down and down. And the church is like, why? Well, I can answer that for you. It's so simple. Stop running a charity and start running a church. I don't want to hear for the 50,000th time about the migrants, or about building houses in Guatemala, or about, I'm not kidding, or about giving more food aid to people in Mozambique. I'm not saying those aren't good, worthy things. What I'm saying is that's all you people talk about now. And so I come to church and it's spiritually barren. You're not speaking to me. And furthermore, we have a cultural breakdown, a social cultural breakdown. It is so obvious in our society. The church is not speaking to any of this. Literally any of this. Here, my children yesterday, okay, my sister-in-law, my older sister-in-law and my niece are here. They're visiting us this week. They're in town. So they were having dinner with them and, they're talking to the kids. My Ashton is inundated with propaganda trying to tell him he's got to be gay or to be transgender or that my daughter has to become a quote-unquote furry. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, a couple lines are open if you want to jump on. Let me ask all of you. It is the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's Siding, Roofing, and Windows. And really, it's a very simple question. Do you like the new Pope? Do you like Pope Leo XIV? And he's the first American-born Pope, and he is the successor now to Pope Francis. And obviously, there's a lot of hope, a lot of optimism now with his papacy. Are you hopeful? Do you like him? Are you happy that he was elected? Were you happy that he was elected? You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in national ER. A, yes. B, no. I'm going to be brutally honest with you, like I'm in the confessional. I would vote B on this poll. I would vote no. I mean, again, I wish him truly all the best. I will pray for him. I want him to succeed. Please don't misunderstand me. To me, I don't want a bad pope. Believe me, that's the last thing I want. But let's put it this way. I was hoping for other conservative candidates to have been selected the Pope. Let's just put it that way. But again, that's me. I want to hear from you. You can also vote via X, and I'm very active on X. My handle is at the Kuhner Report, all one word, Kuhn as in National ER, at the Kuhner Report. Do you like this new pope? Yes or no? Jerry in Pittsfield. Thanks for holding, Jerry, and welcome.
Hey, Jeff. Good morning.
Hi, Jerry.
How are you?
Not bad. I mean, I wanted an African pope. There were a couple of excellent candidates. Traditionalist, socially conservative, really hard line on the sex abuse scandals. I thought they're what the church needs right now. So, I was hoping there were two in particular. Cardinal Sarah is, I guess, how you pronounce his last name, Sarah, but it's Sarah, and it's wonderful cardinal from Ghana. Those were the two that I wanted. I also wanted Burke from the United States. There was the Hungarian cardinal, who I also thought would have been excellent. So there was about 3 or 4, Jerry, that I was like, please, 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 God. And instead, it looks like we got Pope Francis 2.0. Francis the sequel. It appears. I mean, we will wait and see, but that's what it looks like. But I digress. Go ahead, Jerry.
I think we have to give the man a chance and an opportunity. Now, I grew up in Chicago, and I went to a Catholic high school, and I had priests. He went to Mendel Catholics, and they were the Augustinian friars, and they were tougher than the priests were. And I think as you travel through life, Jeff, a lot of the things I learned in high school, I still maintain to this day. And I think people have to remember he's the vicar of Christ, and he's not just for half of the Catholics. He's for all Catholics. And I think there's going to be an epiphany. And I think he's going to surprise a lot of people.
Oh, Jerry, from your lips to God's ears. Oh, I hope you're right. I really hope you're right. You have no idea how much I hope you're right. Jerry, I'm just curious, because you are right. He is the vicar of Christ, and he's not the pope for, half Catholics or 2/3 or 3/4. He's supposed to be the pope for all Catholics. Did you feel that under Francis, he was a pope for all Catholics?
And I think, Jeff, you have to recall back when Pope John was elected pope, he was a freedom fighter back in World War II. And people were worried about him becoming a semi-warmonger during those years. And he turned out he's been canonized. So I think we have to give this man an opportunity to show his true colors.
Listen, I'm with you, Jerry. We'll wait and see. I want to be wrong. I want to be pleasantly surprised. Believe me, nothing would make me happier. So, Jerry, we'll wait and see. But my sense is, again, I'm just going off. I don't even have to go through the tweets of 5 years ago or 2 years ago, just of a couple months ago. The way he greeted Trump's election, and his immigration policies, and his deportations, and his support for that, El Salvadorian gangbanger, or the way he publicly chastised J.D. Vance. Basically came out and said, no, your border immigration deportation policies are immoral. Jesus would not approve. So I'm just going by his comments of the last 4 months. I think it's meet the new boss, same as the old boss. But, Jerry, look, you're right. The Holy Spirit works in very mysterious ways. And I hope he's changed. And I hope this elevation to be the vicar of Christ has a profound transformation on him. I really do. And hopefully he'll listen to all sides and maybe realize the victims of illegal aliens are Christians and people too. It's not just all about the illegals. It's also about the victims of illegals. Jerry, thank you very, very much for that call. I appreciate it. Kathy in Lincoln. Thanks for holding, Kathy, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, Kathy.
How are you?
Good. How are
Hi.
you?
Good. I'm not calling about the Pope, if that's okay. I had an incident last night at our local restaurant in Lincoln. My husband went to pick up our takeout food, and he was standing at the bar waiting for his food, and he had a hat on that said 45/47. And the bartender came up to him and said, "You need to leave the restaurant. You are bothering our patrons."
Are you serious?
And it was really, yeah, I'm totally serious. We turned around and walked out, and he was talking with our neighbor. And it's a place that we go to regularly, but he was talking to our neighbor, and the neighbor didn't defend him.
Sorry, Kathy. So now, did your husband get the takeout food?
Yes, he got the takeout food.
So
but we'll
he
probably
paid?
never go back there again.
Oh, you shouldn't. So you paid, you got your food. He was talking to the neighbor, and then the bartender said, "You're disrupting the other customers. You got to leave right now." Correct?
Yes, you're bothering our patrons. And she didn't say why. She just said, "You're bothering our patrons." And so he politely said, "Okay, it's private property, and I'll leave." So he did.
And he took his food and he left.
He took his food and he left. And this is a place that we go to probably once a week. There are a lot of liberals at the bar that are constantly complaining about Trump, and we keep our mouths shut. But this time, they wanted him out of there.
And he was talking to your neighbor, I guess, at the bar, and your neighbor didn't defend him.
Oh, no.
If you don't mind me asking, is the neighbor a Trump supporter as well?
I think so, yes, he must be. Yeah.
Well, you see, there you go. There you go. It gets right back to the Bible. I mean, I just want to bring it full circle. But, I'm not comparing your husband to Jesus. Please don't get me wrong. But, it's that the fundamental truth when someone is being persecuted or mistreated, people don't speak out. They're afraid of the mob. They're afraid of the mob. And, mob rule. And that's what happened. Kathy, can you do me a big favor? Can you give me the name? I want to know the name of the establishment so we could all boycott it. That's what I'd love to know, Kathy. Please give me the name. I want everybody to boycott it. That's discrimination. And this is what this is what I mean. This is what the church should be speaking out against. I'm not talking about the persecution of Trump supporters, but the way people treat one another now. I got news, and really, I got news for them. That Jesus was not a Democrat. This may come as a shock. Jesus was not a Democrat, okay? So, the way we treat one another now, the lack of civility, the lack of respect, the way we just treat people like absolute garbage. And frankly, Kathy, you and your husband should never go back to that establishment again, and you should tell as many people as possible what happened to your husband. Don't ever frequent that establishment again. You don't treat people like this. Hey, tell him to get out of here. It's a free country. He's got a right to wear a baseball cap. Hey, his guy won. I don't know what else to tell you. You want another? You want another beer with that? That's the answer. Your husband did nothing wrong. He should not have been kicked out. Okay, 8 o'clock, Friday, you know what that means. Kuhner's call log, caller of the week.
It's time for Kuhner's Call Log, where we showcase our favorite caller from the week.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Thanks for holding, Gary.
This is actually Tom Holman, and I'm bringing hell down to Sanctuary Street. And who's this big fella with the white all over his nose?
That's just a powdered donut.
That looks more like a fentanyl donut to me.
1, 2, $3 billion being sent to the moon by that PBS.
Hey, Bert, are we going to have to change our lifestyle?
Ernie, use your condom sense, Ernie. Hey, Holman, I'm Oscar the Grouch, and I'm legal. But check out Rosita. She's in the other trash can out there in the alley.
I the rumba.
I got your big bird right here, Holman.
It's Kermit the Frog here to tell you about lots of government pork.
Miss Piggy lives to see another day, making bacon for the government.
C is for cartel. It's good enough for me. Oh, cartel, starts with C. Yum, 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 yum.
Don't you know the Sharia law down here on Sanctuary Street? It's the How Wow dietary laws.
And next week, it could be you on Kuhner's Call Log.
Please, don't be a stranger. Call again. That was one of the funniest calls we've ever had. I gotta say. I mean, the imitations, he got every single one of them spot on. It was absolutely hilarious. One of the funniest, most hilarious calls we've ever had. 617-266-6868. And by the way, very good job with that, Mike. Okay. Now, just very, very quickly, okay? This is what I mean. We're living in a time of a social cultural breakdown, and it's obvious. We can see it everywhere we go. Here, just had a call from a wonderful young woman. Her husband was told to leave an establishment that had been going to for years every week because of a baseball cap that it had, 45/47 on it. Okay? Now, I've noticed this now really ever since COVID. After COVID, people treat each other in the most horrible, abusive ways. Nobody treats people anymore. I'm not saying nobody, but many people treat others. No kindness, no respect, no appreciation of anybody else but themselves. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. And frankly, I believe the Democratic Party and the media are not exclusively to blame, but primarily to blame. Why? Because they're fostering this absolute hatred for anybody who disagrees with them. Anybody who dares to vote for Trump. Anybody who dares to believe in America first. Anybody who goes against the liberal democratic narrative or regime. And so they're fomenting so much hatred that people now are mistreating others in one of the most despicable ways imaginable. Here, let me just give you an example. He was Trump's nominee to be the U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, D.C., Ed Martin, a brilliant man, a great lawyer. Trump had to withdraw his nomination because Tom Tillis essentially derailed it. Trump's going to give him another position at the DOJ, but just let that go. Martin now is giving an interview on Newsmax. And this crazy woman with a dog, she's a liberal, a moonbat, runs up to him, and then says, I don't know who you effing are. You are Ed Martin. And then spits right on him live on television and then laughs and runs away. Roll cut 16, a mic.
And so we need to get really focused. How you doing? Oh, whoa.
You are a disgusting man.
That's all right.
Okay. You are a disgusting, spits on him and says you are a disgusting man. And then runs off with her dog, laughing. What did he do to anybody? Except demand justice for the J6ers. And go after the prosecutors of the J6ers because they engaged in blatant prosecutorial misconduct. And so because he's Trump's nominee to be the U.S. District Attorney, the District Attorney for the District of Columbia, you spit on him on live television? And she's being celebrated as a hero on the left? So is this now how we're going to conduct our affairs in this country? We're just going to walk up and, just start spitting on each other? Okay, you don't like that one. Here's this. And these are Antifa members who are harassing an elderly woman. She attended a Riley Gaines event talking about how biological men or males should not be competing in women's sports. And as you know, Riley Gaines has been a leading champion of women's sports. And so here's an elderly woman, never said anything to anybody, never bothered anybody. She shows up at the event, is very, peaceful, minding her own business, and then she leaves. Well, she's confronted by these Antifa thugs. Listen to what they said to her. Remember, this is an elderly woman. A vulnerable, frail, defenseless elderly woman who has said nothing. Her only crime is she went to the event and now she's leaving the event. Grandma is leaving. That's it. Roll cut 16A. Mike.
To give the lady space. You're
obviously
harassing her.
Transphobic die! Die,
You transphobic.
You're the scum of the earth. You're so worthless. You produce nothing.
Oh, she's still going. Thanks.
Yeah.
Woo!
You're scum of the earth. I hope you die. You transphobic. I can't, there's a lot of swear words in there, so I got to be careful. Okay? But I hope you die, you transphobic piece of, you know what? This is the level now of the Democrat discourse in this country, of what the Democrats are pushing. Spitting on people, telling them they should be dead. I hope you're dead. Now, here's another one. Okay? This is Frontier Airlines. This is in Raleigh, North Carolina, Durham Airport. And so there's a customer. And this customer is denied check-in by two arrogant gate agents. And I've got to tell you, it's not just at airports. I'm noticing this kind of mistreatment of people by extremely arrogant, condescending, honestly vicious employees. I mean, you want to talk about customer service is dead. Holy mackerel. The way people are now treated, customers are treated, whether it's at grocery stores, whether it's at pharmacies, whether it's at the airport, whether it's at fast food restaurants, you name it. And it's all since COVID. So here's a check-in customer, denied check-in. And again, this customer did nothing wrong. But listen now to these two arrogant gate agents. Roll cut 16B, a mic.
I paid for a ticket.
And you
I paid for a
$25 for
ticket.
agent fee, and you check in 3 hours later. Hello.
I just said that I.
Get on your flight.
Yeah, I just said that I would pay the $25.
And you thought you was gonna get on your flight. And you thought you was gonna get on your flight. And you thought you was gonna get on your flight. And you thought you was gonna get on your flight.
I literally paid for a ticket. I'm here 30 minutes. I'm here 30 minutes before my flight, and they're not letting me check in.
And you're not getting on your flight.
Because it's a policy. We don't control that.
And you will never fly.
You were about to let me check in. You were about to let me check in. And you decided that you ain't going to let me check in.
Make me check you in.
You literally work for a company that I bought a plane ticket for.
Can you please leave my personal space?
I'm not in your personal space. This is not your personal space.
This is my stationery.
We ain't got to worry about it.
You don't have to worry about it. You're literally not doing your job for a customer that has paid for a plane ticket to get home.
He showed up at the check-in counter. It was 50 minutes before the flight left, before the flight scheduled to leave. The policy, I believe, is 60 minutes. And he said, hey, come on, man. It's 50 minutes. I still have time. I paid for the ticket. So initially they said, okay, but you're going to have to pay an extra surcharge. I think, was it $25? And he said, oh, come on. Why do I got to pay the surcharge? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, by the way, those two Frontier Airlines gate agents have now been terminated by the airlines. after this video that we just played went viral. But still, I mean, I'm happy they were let go because their behavior was outrageous. It was arrogant. It was insulting. It was demeaning. Frankly, it was disgusting. Here you have a customer who arrives, I think their policy is you have to be at the check-in by, 60 minutes before the flight departs. Came in at about 50 minutes before the flight departs. And they said, okay, we'll let you aboard, but you got to pay the $25 surcharge. And he was like, well, why should I pay the $25 surcharge? I mean, I'm here. You're going to let me board the flight. I already paid for my ticket. Well, if you're going to be like that, you're not getting on the flight at all. And he's like, but you just said I could. Well, now we changed our mind. And he's like, why are you treating me like this? And then, you heard they're outrageous. And they mistreated him. And the more he tried to appeal to them, the more nasty and abusive they became. To the point where, she's like, now you're in my personal space. He's like, I'm at the counter. Like, what personal space? So I've paid for a full ticket, and this is how you treat me as a customer? Now, my point being, this is happening more and more often. I'm not saying all the time. I'm not saying everywhere. But here, Sandy just told me this story before we went on the air today. She was at a pharmacy, at one of her local pharmacies. She was waiting in line, a couple of minutes, not long. And there was a customer at the front who was just being berated by two of the pharmacy employees. And Sandy was like, look, I'm telling you, Jeff, I saw the whole thing. The customer was very polite, did not understand, and even said at one point, why are you yelling at me? Like, why are you not being nice to me? What have I done? And, she would just ask a certain basic question, and they'd be like, we don't have to deal with this. Well, why are you asking? Are you stupid? You don't understand what we're telling you? And she's like, no, I don't understand. Can you please explain it to me? Well, no, we're not going to explain it to you. And they're yelling and screaming and shouting. And the customers behind this lady cannot believe how she is being so mistreated and so disrespected. And then they eventually said basically to her, get lost. And then they end up closing the doors for their lunch break. And then the other customer said, whoa, wait, we've been waiting here for 10, 15 minutes. What is this? Well, too bad. We're going on lunch. Bye. Come back later. Now, Sandy said that they right away complained to the manager how that poor woman was completely mistreated, completely abused, and how rude these employees were, how arrogant, how demeaning. And Sandy said she came back the next day and it looks like they weren't there. I mean, I don't know if they got fired or not, but they weren't there. Now, my point is, and this was Sandy's point to me in our pre-show production meeting, she says, Jeff, I blame the Democrats. Look at this entitlement culture that they've been fostering. Look at this mentality of me, 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 me. And this idea that nothing should inconvenience them whatsoever. And they can treat people, abuse people, any way they want. If they're having a bad day, too bad for you. If they're slightly annoyed at you, too bad for you. No regard for other people whatsoever. For their feelings, for their dignity, just nothing. No consideration whatsoever. I go back to that call. So my husband goes in to get takeout. He's got a Trump hat on, okay. And suddenly you kick him out? You kick the guy out? Because he's got a Trump hat? This is how we're going to treat fellow citizens? Now, I'm noticing it. People are much ruder now than they used to be. people pop off at each other over nothing. And customer service, again, I'm not saying everywhere, all times, but I'm often shocked at how rude, arrogant, and verbally abusive employees are, whether it's Target, whether it's the grocery store, whether it's the pharmacy, whether it's at an airport, it really doesn't matter. And I'm like, you realize that's a paying customer you're abusing. Now, if the customer is mistreating the employee, okay, I get it. But literally, it's just, no, they're in a bad mood and they think they have a right to mistreat you. And increasingly, people just take it. So I want to ask you, I think it's something in the culture. I really do. I think it's a lack of socialization. I think it's a lack of proper upbringing. To me, I think no question the prevalence of social media, where everybody's in front of a screen, nobody deals with human beings anymore. And not just that they don't deal with human beings anymore, human beings are almost like a commodity. They're expendable. They're annoying because everything is press button, touch button. You want something right away? Click. And if something goes wrong, people throw a temper tantrum. And they just think, well, I'll treat anybody the way I want to treat them because people really aren't real anymore. But part of it is this constant stream of pure and utter hatred and intolerance that the Democratic Party keeps spewing day after day. You've got now Jasmine Crockett, that crazy moonbat from Texas, giving speeches telling people, pick up a chair. We know how to use a chair. You don't like a conservative? You don't like a Republican? You don't like a Trump supporter? Pick up that chair and whack them right across the head. And they're like, yeah, yeah. Okay, a lot of you are reacting to the clips that we've played, and overall the question: are we witnessing, or do you feel the coarsening of our culture? And really, do you feel that people are often now being abused and mistreated by employees, whether it be at airports, airlines, pharmacies, restaurants, bars, wherever it may be, and that there's just less of a regard for other human beings? I see it. I think it's spreading, but that's me. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868 is the number. This is from 508. You can text us 70470, 70470. Jeff, this rudeness that you're talking about comes from the legacy media, the movie business where they glamorize thuggish behavior, and one wheel on the government to educate our kids. The culture is rotten. My question is, who is benefiting? While we are all dealing with this crap, who benefits? Very good question. Very, very, very good question. This is from 617. Jeff, a major reason why you are seeing people behave the way they are now is that that the schools tell the kids in so many ways that they are smarter than their parents. Just look at the abortion issue, the trans issue, and the violence that goes unpunished. Parental rights are being eroded at a rapid rate. This is becoming the Lord of the Flies. 617-266-6868. That was a very famous novel, Lord of the Flies. I read it when I was in high school, and it's starting to resemble the behavior of a lot of people. I mean, they just treat people with no regard whatsoever. Literally, whatsoever. 617-266-6868. Have you experienced anything like this? Have you been mistreated? Have you been abused? Have you been degraded by an employee simply because they were having a bad day or they felt annoyed? And so they just decided to lash out at you. 617-266-6868. And honestly, one last question. Do you feel the way we treat each other as citizens, as neighbors, as a society, has it declined, especially after COVID? I've noticed it, but maybe that's just me. Agree, disagree? Caroline in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Caroline, and welcome.
Jeff. Hi, Jeff. Thank you for taking my call.
My pleasure.
In regards to your new topic,
I actually learned early on.
Caroline, we're going to try to reset. Your voice changed mid-sentence. Not your fault. It's the connection. So you went from being a human being to sounding like a computer. Mike, is there any? Can we see if we can make her sound like a normal person again? All right, let's go back to Caroline. Caroline, are you there?
I don't know why it happens to me, but here it goes again.
That's okay. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. First off, I did call about the Pope, but I will tell you that I learned early on, in all honesty, how cruel people can be. As a child, I was one of the teased kids in school, really bad. And, it starts at home, and it starts with upbringing, and it starts with people teaching their children to be kind to one another. And, get a little emotional because those are very hard years for me and my mom. But anyways, that being said, I just want to talk about the Pope, if that's okay, because it does have a lot to do with how people treat each other, your religion, and what your upbringing is, and your morals and your ethics. But I wanted to just talk about, I wanted to expose just a few things, if that's okay, because I think it's important for people to know the truth. And I actually was not a big Catholic growing up. I really didn't have a lot of guidance, to be completely honest. But then I was listening to certain popes online who were teaching the true values of the Catholic Church. And I'm with J.D. Vance. I've come back. I think it's a very important structure to have. But I think that the Vatican has become something completely opposite of what it originally intended to be. And I'd like to give you some proof, and I don't like saying this, but I think it's very important right now for you to know who actually voted in this Pope. And I'm just going to guide you all to do your own search on the cardinals in the Vatican, and you can look up orgies, parties, drugs, and there have been several times when neighbors have had to call the police to break up, or not break up, but to go in, and they found these parties. That's the real truth, okay? The truth needs to be told. There's also been some particular books written in regards to the mafia connection with the Vatican. Who is controlling the Vatican these days? What exactly is going on? And the other thing is, and I know this is it sounds like a conspiracy theory, but again, it's not. And it's coming out more and more, and that there are other people besides the Pope. There's the white Pope, which is what he wears. There's the black Pope, which is what he wears, and he is from, I believe, Colombia. And, of course, there's one called the Gray Pope, which is the Orsini family. These are old families that go back a very, very, very long time that have integrated within the Catholic Church. So I'm going to leave that as is. But the other thing is, so the Blessed Mother, she has always spoken out. If you're Catholic and you believe in the Blessed Mother, some don't. If you don't, I believe I suggest you watch a documentary on a man named Artie Boyle from Massachusetts called 6 Months to Live. He went to Medjugorje, where the Blessed Mother has been speaking out. In your ancestors' country, what used to be a communist country, Yugoslavia, now Bosnia, Herzegovina, and he was cured of a cancer. It was an amazing story, and one of many things that have happened there. But anyway, she spoke in Fatima. She warned us about this communism. She warned us that this was coming. And then what happened? You had a show on the Atlantic talking about that article about the rosary, and if you follow and pray the rosary, that you're an extremist. And now they're having, in Spain, you can't pray the rosary around a government building. In the UK, J.D. Vance again mentioned this, I believe. Somebody was arrested for praying outside an abortion clinic. This is ridiculous. And the last thing is, so why did the Pope pick the name Leo? And this Pope, by the way, is one of the popes who was supportive of removing conservative priests like Father Strickland. He was a bishop, and he was conservative, and they defrocked him. I'm not sure if he was involved with Archbishop Vigano, but I'll tell you what, I believe that if this is the way that things are going, I would actually be for a split in the Catholic Church, and I would follow Archbishop Vigano.
Caroline, look, you put your finger on it. That's my fear. My fear is that we're heading towards a potential schism. I don't know. You've had, look, I'm putting it mildly. You got two left-wing popes back to back. To me, I would consider Francis a Marxist pope, to be perfectly candid. Now, again, we'll see what's going to happen with Pope Leo XIV. But if you've got two Marxist papacies back to back, I don't know how the church can survive that. I mean, it'll survive, but I think it's going to split the church. The church is already fractured. This is going to polarize it and divide it even more. Here, look, front page of today's Daily Telegraph in Britain. And this is, already it's starting to come out. Questions now about Pope Leo XIV covering up for priests in Peru who were accused of massive sex abuse scandals. So, again, this issue is going to haunt him the way it haunted Francis. Sal in Framingham. Thanks for holding, Sal, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning,
Sal.
Jeff. On the topic of, people treating people a certain way or a bad way or whatever, I think it started, I noticed during COVID when we got back to work. I work in a type of company where I'm in different buildings throughout the day, different companies, and people that didn't normally have any bit of power with the rules that they had, whereas you had to get your temperature taken, go up to a screen, wear a mask, this and that, you could tell they relished in having that power and control and treating you a certain way, and it, sometimes in a rude way, and I think it's just carried over onto now, and after all that was all done with, I think people still love and they relish having any kind of power over other people, and they get off on it.
It's a really interesting perception on your part. I got to say, very perceptive, because I've noticed that as well, that during COVID, they were power tripping. And I mean, to the point you're talking about, going to work and at the office, but I even noticed on the streets in the park where you'd see like these crazy moonbats. I remember there's like one woman in particular, "Where's your mask? Where's your mask?" And they loved it. They could lord it over you. They could shame you. They could ostracize you. They could control you. And I think you're right. I think it's gotten into people's bloodstream. I think they got a taste of it. They love it. And now it's like an addiction. They can't get off of it. And it's like we've become, as a society, almost addicted to yelling, screaming, shouting, and berating people. Have you noticed that? It's like, I'm going to treat you like dirt. And it's almost, you're right, like we get off on it. It's like a thrill. Oh, I really showed them who's boss. And I'm just seeing it more and more and more. And the other thing, Sal, and you tell me if you agree or not, the way people run their mouth now, almost like over nothing. Like literally over, I don't know, you're in the shopping, you're at a grocery store and you're just shopping down an aisle. And I don't know, accidentally cut somebody off and right away, F you, mother effer, who the F do you think you are? And everybody's running their mouth. And it's almost like, what, do you want to cause an incident? I don't know, do you want to start a fight? Do you want to go viral on TikTok? Is that what it is? It's just bizarre. And, it's rarer. Look, here, just something as basic as this. And I know I've mentioned it before, but it's just very disconcerting. When you work here, okay, even here at iHeart, there are people I know. I mean, I speak to them. I've had conversations with them. But you walk down the aisle, walk down the hallway, they don't say hi to you. Unless you say hi to them, they don't say hi to you. And I don't mean like you just were in a meeting together. I mean, you know them, you've had conversations, it's a new day, it's, whatever. It's, I'm doing my show and it's 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning, and you're walking down the hallway and they're looking away like they don't see you. And it happens again and again. And if I don't, and by the way, they tend to be in their 20s and early 30s. It's like Gen Z millennials. And it's weird. And they'll just walk right by you and not even acknowledge you, like you don't exist. Unless you say hi. And if you say hi, they'll nod their head or they'll say hi. But otherwise, they just walk right by you. And they don't think twice about it. And then, maybe you'll see them the next day or 2 days later at a meeting or whatever, and they talk to you like your best buddies. It's weird. People don't shake hands anymore. The younger generation, I mean, here or there, but now it's like COVID. It's like they stay back, space, and they'll maybe like lift their hand up and say hi, but they don't shake hands. That like you're violating their space. So the ability for us to even connect with each other, communicate with each other, interact with each other, it's slowly breaking down. Sal, am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And I think a lot has to do with these phones. The younger generation, all they do is text. They don't talk. They have conversations through typing and texting. They don't communicate, so they're not learning how to communicate. And I really believe that.
Yeah, Sal, there's almost as if they're becoming antisocial. There's an and they can't speak in public at all. Again, I'm painting with a broad brush. Of course, there are exceptions. There's no question. But, say there's a business, whatever, an office meeting. And, I'm not saying you have to be an eloquent, powerful public speaker, but to just, okay, so, what happened this week or whatever? How were the results on the website this week? Was traffic up? Was traffic down? More people tuning in, less people. And they freeze up. They can't speak. They don't want to speak. They're painfully shy. It's as if it's almost impossible for them to function on a social level anymore. It's weird. It's really very, very weird. And Sal, I swear to you, I've noticed this now since COVID, and especially about the last 2 to 3 years. They don't shower. Or they don't shower as often. The one thing that used to stand out about the United States and Canada, to be frank, is, North Americans shower. They're clean. They shower. For example, if I go work out, I shower twice a day. I shower, and then if I work out, I shower again. So, North Americans are known for, they're always clean. They're always showering, always using underarm deodorant, always wearing fresh, clean underwear, fresh, clean clothes. I'm noticing now, I don't know if it's this environmental trend that somehow you can't use detergent or you can't use hot water or soap and shampoo is bad for the environment, or they want to go, everybody's au naturel. I don't know what that is, but I'm noticing now, I never, ever had this before. You're at a meeting or you're talking to someone and you're like their armpits, like they don't smell good. They haven't showered. It's been a couple. Now I don't even bother going to it anymore. Why? There are a couple of employees there. Every time I go to the checkout, they reek. And they're young. They're in their 20s. I'm like, I don't know if they don't shower. I don't know if they don't use underarm deodorant. I don't know what it is, but holy mackerel. What an odor. It smells like a toilet in there. And so I'm seeing this more and more. Grace and I, a couple of months ago, went to the movie theater. group of maybe 20-somethings, okay? Like, I don't know, college kids, whatever. Grace said to me, this has never happened before. She said, Jeff, can we please leave? Like, go somewhere else in the theater? She goes, there's an odor. I can't take it. It's overpowering. It's like sweat, like a sweat odor. And there's like 5, 6, 7 of them sitting right next to each other. So my wife is overwhelmed with the stink of someone not showering. The friends don't notice this? I'm telling you, it's weird. Something is happening. They don't shower as often. They don't change their clothes as often. They don't use deodorant as often. It's as if they all became slobs under COVID. And they stayed home, and they felt, well, who cares about personal grooming because I'm just home all the time. And it's almost as if now they feel they don't have to, care for themselves. I don't know about Sal, maybe it's me, but I know a lot of people now are complaining about it. So it's almost as if we're becoming decivilized. It's almost as if we're reverting more and more to a primitive state. Final word to you, Sal.
Well, you saying it's almost like full circle. It's the hippie revolution all over again from the 60s. The hippies where they never showered, the Woodstock era, no showering and no cleaning. And
no, I know. My dad used to tell me, because I was born in 1969, so I kind of missed that. But my dad would say, really, you have no idea how often people would say in the late 60s, early 70s to these hippies, get a bath, take a bath. Like for God's sakes, you smell. Would you get a job and take a bath? That's all they kept telling him. Get a job and take a bath. We're starting to, Sal, it's starting to come back, my friend. It's almost like the 60s are back. Sal, thank you very much for that call. 617-266-6868. Let me throw this log on the fire. Have you noticed that people don't, younger especially, those in their 20s and early 30s, that they don't shower as much? They don't clean themselves as much. That there's more, like body odor out there. And what's your theory? Why? Is it COVID? Is it they're just in front of a phone and they're just oblivious? What's going on? Again, or is this just me? 617-266-6868. Roman in Boston. Thanks for holding, Roman, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you, Roman?
I'm good. Okay, I do want to talk about the Pope a little bit.
Yes, go ahead.
And one of your previous callers, she touched on it, but she didn't get there, and about why he chose his name. Now, Leo the First was the Pope in the 400s, and Leo was a very famous Pope. He went and met Attila, because Attila the Hun was going to sack Rome, and there was nothing stopping him. For some reason, Attila backed off, and he ended up dying, because he was going to invade the next season. It's symbolic to me that why he chose that name is, and it stuck with me all day yesterday, because I know the story very well. Is Attila representative of MAGA, and Pope Leo the 14th is now coronated and given the task of repelling the barbarian horde? It's just something that resonated with me, and I don't know why. The left is famous for, love your neighbor. Jesus says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. But I don't think Jesus would be too fond of your neighbor rape, pillaging, and plundering your entire home, and our home is our country. And another one they use is when Herod went and killed all the male Jews. Who wanted to kill was going killing all the male Jew children, and Gabriel went to Joseph and said, take him to Egypt. Well, what if Egypt had a wall? Well, if Egypt had a wall, God would have tore it down, or he would have sent Jesus somewhere else. So, that's what I have to say about that. And Jeff, I've been on the street for 30 years, and I've seen how society has declined. People are dirty. They go to the supermarket in their pajamas and slippers. They go to the airport in their pajamas. No one's kept. No kids that look clean. They're all in dark clothing or gang-affiliated clothing. They just look horrible. And you're right about odor. It's a thing. It's a thing. You're next to someone in the supermarket, and the smell is just emanating off of them. Personal hygiene has kind of gone out the window. I don't know where that came from. But but the Pope's name really stuck with me yesterday. And one of you, like I said, she was a machine gun of information, but she was getting there, and she didn't get there. And I just wanted to try and...
Well, no, Roman, look, you're making I think two very interesting points. Number one, you're right. Personal hygiene has gone out the window. And I'm seeing it more and more. And I'd love to know what's driving this. I'm noticing it more since COVID, so I'm assuming it was COVID. I don't know. It could be something even deeper. But you're right. And again, it's mostly, not all, but I'm just saying I'm noticing, quite a few Gen Zers, like people in their 20s. I'm like, don't you care about your appearance? And you're right. Pajamas and sandals. It's the weirdest thing. You go shopping or wherever you go, grocery shopping, and it's like she's like 24. He's 24, 25, or she's 24, 25. They look like they just rolled out of bed. And it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And they're in their pajamas. Like their pajamas, their actual pajamas. And their hair is messy. They look like they haven't showered, washed their face, brushed their teeth. And they don't care. Like they just don't care. It's weird. Anyway, but to your other point about Leo, what the Pope's office is saying, I'm just going by what they're saying. He chose Leo the 14th in honor of Leo the 13th. You're going all the way back to the original Leo. But they're saying, no, he wants to see himself as a Pope of the workers, as a social justice Pope, as a Pope of the migrants, of the marginalized, of the poor, of the oppressed. So again, and this is his office saying this, that he's going to be very much a Pope in the vein of Francis. And that's why he took Leo the 14th to succeed Leo the 13th. Now, what they're not telling you is that, yes, Leo the 13th in his famous 1891 letter on the condition of labor was critical of industrial capitalism, the mistreatment of workers, said you should have a living wage, you should treat workers with dignity and fairness. But what they leave out is that Leo the 13th was adamant, saying socialism is not the answer. Marxism, communism is the devil. In other words, yes, he was critical of capitalism. Yes, he wanted workers' rights in the sense of giving them a living wage, healthy, clean conditions where they work, safe conditions where they work. But he also was a staunch opponent of socialism. That part they're leaving out completely. So in a way, and again, forgive my way of saying it, but it's a bastardization and a perversion of the message and social teaching of Leo the 13th. But again, it's the migrants, it's the illegals, it's social justice, which is really a code for socialism. It's a continuation of Francis's legacy, which is to push the church in a very progressive direction, almost a socialist direction. And what they don't seem to understand is that this is going to lead to a massive split and schism in the church. They don't see this coming. And I thought they were going to correct with a conservative traditionalist pope. Instead, they haven't. Now, again, he just was elected. Maybe he'll change. Maybe the Holy Spirit will guide him. There's many factors. But from everything that I'm seeing, everything that I'm hearing, this is going to be Francis 2.0, maybe even worse. He is very anti-Trump, very anti-MAGA. You got to see what he wrote about George Floyd. He basically said we should all take the knee for George Floyd. He's very pro-Black Lives Matter. He is a radical on climate change. He is very anti-capitalist, very anti-free market. But his big issue is he does not believe there should be borders. That to have any kind of border enforcement or mass deportation up to and including deporting MS-13 gangbangers. That's why the media in this country is celebrating him. He is backing and championing the cause of Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Now, I'm sorry. I could maybe understand. I could intellectually wrap my mind around a single mother, young children. Jeff, these are migrants who just want to come and work for a living. They come from crushing poverty. I can see the argument. Again, I don't believe you allow people to come into your country unvetted. But fine, I can see the argument. I can't see an argument for Abrego Garcia from a holy man, a cardinal. He was then a cardinal. Now the Pope. I don't see it. He's MS-13. Here, there's a new damning video. I mean, this should be the final nail in the coffin of those trying to promote this guy. He was caught trafficking 7 human beings, illegals. There was a gangbanger that he was working for. This MS-13 gangbanger has now come out and said, I hired him to traffic illegals for me. They found $1,400 on Abrego Garcia when he was in that truck. That was his payment. By the way, they also found drugs, but let that go. So you're going to champion the cause of an MS-13 terrorist, a known human trafficker, it's modern day slavery, a wife beater, a gangbanger. And you're telling me this is not what the church is supposed to stand for? Why? Follow the money. He's not a stupid man. He's a highly educated, refined man. He's got a PhD in canon law. The problem now is the church needs the billions and billions and billions that they get through NGOs like Catholic Charities to traffic migrants all over the world. It's no longer doctrine talking, it's money talking. And for him to come out with that ridiculous statement against J.D. Vance, that I'm supposed to love Abrego Garcia more or as much as I do my own wife or my own spouse or my own children or my own country, that's pure Marxism. That's insane. I mean, that's insane. So, no, this is the problem. The problem is now the church has been taken over by left-wing globalists. That was the push under Francis. And I'm sorry, Francis covered up the sex abuse scandal. He did. Okay, it's all on the table. I want to hear from you. 617-266-6868. Lines are loaded. Stacy in New Jersey. Thanks for holding, Stacy, and welcome.
Jeff, how are you this morning?
Very good. And thank you for asking, Stacy.
I'm calling about 2 things. Number one, customer service. I'm on the other side of the counter, and let me tell you, people come into our office, they act so entitled, or they call our office and they act so entitled. They're nasty. They expect things that are just impossible. And we try to accommodate people, but every day. And we work, it's a medical office. It's a lot of elderly people, and they're some of the worst. So it's not just the millennials.
Oh, really?
Yes. What do you mean? You can't get me in at 2:30. Well, we have an 11 o'clock available for you. I can't make it at 11 o'clock. What do you mean you don't have a 2:30 today? It's like, we get that every day. And I could tell you story after story about people that we try to accommodate, we try to do for them, and it's just never good enough. We accommodated a patient the other day, and she had to go to another doctor after us because she was having surgery. And we found out that she was talking smack about our office because she came to the visit unprepared and had to be there for a little while to gather all the information that they needed to do what they had to do. She came unprepared, and she's talking smack about us when all we did and the other office did was accommodate her. So it's on both sides, and it's not just the millennials.
Oh, I believe you. I believe you. Stacey, if I'm getting too personal, please tell me. I promise I won't be offended. Has it gotten worse since COVID? Maybe it hasn't. I don't know how long you've been doing this, but it seems to me that people's behavior has really degenerated since COVID. But have you experienced the same thing, or was this always, even before COVID?
Well, when you're dealing with sick people, they tend to take on that tone, but it has definitely gotten worse since COVID. Now and they'll call up and ask for something, and it's like, well, our next available for a regular, is 6 or 8 weeks out, and they're like, really, I have to wait that long? And I'm like, I can't call the dentist and get a well visit for 6 months. You know what I'm saying?
No, I understand. Stacey,
why? Because you want it at our office. We're supposed to do it. It's just like, hello? No,
you're not a miracle worker. No, I completely understand. Stacey, I've got to ask you, what do you think is driving this? Like, if you and I were just, whatever, you're at, Grace invites you over for one of her great Italian dinners, and, we're just sitting around the table with my family, and I'm saying, Stacey, look, between you and me and these four walls, what's going on? Why are people behaving like this?
I think the caller before kind of nailed it. There's a power trip that people got during COVID. I think also during those years with the riots and all that, they were empowered. I think that our children are not being taught by their parents decent common courtesy. I saw it when my children, who are in their early 30s, were children, that their friends didn't have common courtesy. And teachers would say to me, "Oh, your children are so polite." It's like, really? I'm just teaching them basics. How to answer a phone properly. That my children's friends were not taught that. And I think that the parents felt that they shouldn't restrict their children and this whatever. But so I think that in the schools they're indoctrinated to be their best self. Be their best self. No, why don't you be a good person?
Oh, I'm so with you. Stacey, I'm telling you, it's like you and I are on the same wavelength. Really, it's like you're finishing my sentences. And it's funny you should say that, because I've noticed that with Ashton and Ava's friends. They never say thank you. Ever. Oh, there's one. That's not true. There is one. Okay, there's one. One of Ava's friends is very polite, very well raised, working class kid, good parents, hardworking parents, and he's very sweet, very nice, and always just really polite, well raised. But the others, you buy them pizza, they don't say thank you. I'm not kidding. You buy them ice cream, they don't say thank you. It's the weirdest thing. Forget please, or forget that. No one says please anymore for anything. And so the teachers, I'm not saying I don't have problems with my kids. I do. I'm not saying, oh, look at my kids, they're perfect. But, I'm raising my kids. Say please, say thank you, be polite. And you go to school and you're like, oh, your kids are so well, they're so well behaved and they're so polite. I'm like, really? Just what? Thank you, please? And I'm always on their case, because sometimes at home they don't say it. And I said, excuse me, what's the magic word? Thank you. And they'll even say with an attitude, And I'll say, hey, knock off the attitude. Here, I just went grocery shopping. I got you everything you wanted. What's the magic word? You know, okay, thank you. I'm like, no, say it like you mean it. So what I'm saying is just the basic courtesies now. And they're like, oh, your children, wow. And I look at them like, really? Is that how bad things have gotten? I guess they have. Stacy, do you feel on some days you just want to quit and give up when you face this kind of constant verbal abuse?
Absolutely. I wanted to say one thing. I'd rather have the obsequious Eddie Haskell treatment than no thank you at all. Okay? And yes, I do everything I can to be nice to these people, and it's really hard. It's really hard. And it's not how I am, but they've made me that way. You know, these people just act, and I live in the New York metropolitan area, and people, like, you drive on the streets, and they don't know how to drive anymore. It's been ever since COVID. And I want to say one thing about the airlines. Now, I don't go in my pajamas to go on a plane, but I don't get dressed nicely because they don't respect me with a clean plane. I'm not wearing nice clothes.
Oh, I'm not saying you should come in with a suit or whatever, a beautiful dress or an outfit. No, I mean, I'm sure you shower. You know what I mean? I'm sure you use underarm deodorant. You know, I bet you even do a little spritz, like a little perfume or something. You know, I mean, there's been a few plane rides I've been on. I'm not kidding. The person beside me, oh man, it was torture. Would it kill you to put some soap and water on your body, for God's sake? And here, I'll buy you the freaking deodorant, but slap some on your armpits, for God's sake. Joining us now, as she always does at this time, she is the co-founder, president, CEO of Kelly Financial Services. And yes, that is her incredibly wonderful name, Kelly. Kelly, how are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I am good. Retirement should feel like freedom, not fear. And real retirement planning isn't just about savings, it's about strategy. That's where a fiduciary financial advisor makes all the difference. At Kelly Financial, our advisors walk you through a retirement income checklist that covers everything from rising healthcare costs and inflation protection to smart tax moves and income that lasts. As fiduciaries, our advisors are legally and ethically obligated to put your best interest first. That means helping you answer the tough questions, like how to avoid running out of money or what happens if your spouse outlives you. Give us a call or email us at kelly@kellyfinancial.org to schedule your complimentary appointment. Jeff, I will continue this conversation with our Kelly advisors tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Safe Money Strategies Radio. Do tune in or go to our website for the radio rewind. Jeff, happy Mother's Day to Grace and all the mothers listening in. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
God bless you. God bless you, Kelly. Happy Mother's Day to you as well. And all my best to everyone at Kelly Financial. Call now for your free retirement consultation. 888-800-1881. 888-800-1881. Or you can actually email Kelly yourself, kelly@kellyfinancial.org, kelly@kellyfinancial.org. 617-266-6868. Lines are jammed. Steve in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Steve, and welcome.
Jeff, just wanted to comment regarding what you're saying about body odors.
Yes.
If you noticed also, you'll notice on TV there's a lot of ads recently for what's called full body deodorant. And they talk about that you don't have to bathe. It stays effective for 72 hours, which is 3 days that they're telling you you don't need to bathe, shower. It protects you better than washing daily. And there was an article several months back, I believe it was in Wall Street Journal, talking about this, that it is like a climate change environmental action in that to save water and to cut down on bathing and water usage. And it also gets tied into as far as staying even in hotels. I travel quite a bit on business, and I've noticed and staying in 3-4-star hotels, they do not change your sheets and towels on a daily basis. A lot of them tell you have to request it, but if you're staying for a day, 2 days, 3 days, you won't have your sheets, your towels changed, and it all goes back to it's an environmental, a climate thing, save the water usage. And I think that that's a big part of the what's going on today, is that they're telling us that it's an environmental thing to stop it.
Oh, I agree. No, it's
much.
again, you're dead on, Steve. It's under the guise of, climate change and, a greener planet and blah, blah, blah. And what's happening is people are, they stink. And, things, this was one of the great perks of going to an American hotel is you would get clean sheets every day, clean towels every day. To me, nothing beats the smell of a clean towel, really. In the morning, whatever, you wash your face, you shave, you brush your teeth, and that smell of a nice clean towel in the morning. It smells great. Or you come out of the shower and there it is, a nice big, clean, great smelling bath towel. And to me, again, you're just seeing our standard of living go down, our quality of life constantly go down. And I got to ask you, Steve, I don't know, maybe it's me, maybe it's my upbringing, but you're right. I see these commercials as well. The full body deodorant, good for 72 hours. You don't have to shower. Do you want to be around somebody who doesn't smell good? No, and I don't just mean a movie theater. Go to the grocery store, you're at the checkout, you're like, oh my God, just get me out of here. I'm going to die. The guy who's bagging the groceries, he stinks. Your partner, you're at home. Do you want to be beside someone who doesn't smell good? Do you want to be someone, forgive me, you're in bed with someone and they don't, honey, when was the last time you showered? Oh, 4 days ago. I'm like, ugh. Steve, am I wrong? And so are these moonbats, these liberals, what, they don't mind? Forgive me, they don't mind being intimate with someone who doesn't smell good? This doesn't bother them? It just, so you want to keep reusing a towel that doesn't smell good and that's dirty? You want me to be beside you and watching television or whatever we're doing at night? And I got this, it stinks from your armpits? But hey, we're doing it for the environment. After a while, don't liberals care? Don't they have standards? Or am I missing something here, Steve?
And it is a push for that type of an environment. People love to go. They talk about Europe. They go on the European trips, and they love the ambiance of Europe. And that's what part of Europe was or is still, is again, they do not, you go in some elevators in a hotel or in a facility and in Europe, and it does smell in there terribly from body odor. And yet this is what people feel is a good thing for us to do. They want to cut down on the air conditioning. They want to cut down on anything. Again, it goes back to a climate change.
Steve, Steve, I wish you were wrong, but you are 1,000% correct. I know. When I go to Europe, I notice it as well. By the way, there's official statistics. Continental Europeans will maybe change. It depends. Every country is slightly different, obviously. but they only change underwear about once or twice a week, both men and women. If, for example, in France, the average French person, male or female, will only bathe or shower once a week. Once a week. So their standards of personal hygiene and cleanliness very different from ours. And you're right. When I go to Europe, I do notice the difference. There's a lot more body odor there. And that's something we used to... I'm not saying you don't meet the occasional person, but here it was like, no, Americans smell great. You know, Americans are like clean fanatics. Oh my God, they got to shower every day, every day. Look, just to give you an example, my dad was very clean. My mom was very clean. But just to give you an example, my dad and my mom would maybe shower or bathe 3 times, 4 times a week. My sister and I, we always showered every day, right? You know, Canada's like the United States. So every day we showered. My parents thought that was a little bit weird. Like, I mean, initially, they got used to it. Obviously, they realized everybody else did it. But they thought, like, geez, like, that's excessive. Like, because they still came from Europe. So they're like, hey, we bathe quite a bit. We're bathing 3 times a week. Even 4 times a week. That's a lot. But you guys every day. And we're like, well, yeah. Or, sometimes I would change my socks twice a day. Like when I would play sports or whatever, I'd take it off and put on a fresh pair. And my mother said, like, wow, like in Europe, you don't do that. So I'm just saying, we used to have such high standards of cleanliness. And now, you're right, they're trying to make us more European in the name of climate change. And I don't know about you, but I don't want to be around someone who stinks. Call me crazy. 9:48 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's Bulldozer, 617-266-6868. Okay, just want to give everybody a heads up. In just over about an hour and a half, at 11:25 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I am going to be on Newsmax, on National Report, on their political panel. So if you want to see more of the Kuhner Man, I'll probably be debating a liberal. I've been doing this now for several weeks on Newsmax. They have me debating a liberal. Sometimes there are fireworks, other times they're not. We shall see what will happen today, but 11:25 a.m. scheduled to be on Newsmax, and hopefully we'll have some fireworks. 617-266-6868. Lisa in Belmont. Thanks for holding, Lisa, and welcome.
If I just want to make 2 quick points because you're talking about 2 subjects this morning.
Yes.
The first one is I taught CCD years ago, and the Catholic Church was slowly going away from Catholic doctrine in their teaching. And when we had Catholic doctrine, people would dress up for church. People had children that were married. We didn't have all this liberalism. They were very strict. And I think when I was teaching, we had to compete with the sports going on in schools. And we actually had to start teaching at night because the kids had sports on Saturday and Sunday. The kids were slowly getting away from the Catholic Church. They didn't know anything about the rosaries. They weren't going to confession. I mean, everything just broke down slowly. And I think that's a big problem, what's happening in society, the breakdown of the family. Another thing is, on your second point this morning, a woman wrote on Belmont Community Chat that her water bill was so high, she almost passed out. And she said, from now on, I'm taking a shower maybe 3 times a week.
Ugh.
I personally think on this second subject that you've been talking about, I don't think it's anything to do with this green stuff. I think things have gotten so expensive. People are cracking up. I mean, that's why they're snapping at each other. It's a whole conglomeration of everything just keep going higher and higher and higher. What say you?
That's a very, very interesting point. I didn't even think of that angle. Again, I mean, Lisa, I have to say this, best audience in the business. I mean, I know I keep saying it, but really, it's true. Look, I can just tell you this from my point of view, okay? We're fine. We're doing great. I'm not pleading poverty. Please don't get me wrong. I'm constantly complaining. I never was like this before. I don't mean complain as if I'm angry. Everything is so expensive. I'm noticing it all the time. And it's just, you feel under constant financial pressure. And you can never get ahead. And the water bill, Grace comes and gives me the water bill. I'm like, this is insane. This is insane. This is not normal. The electricity bill, the energy bill. I go, who can afford this? I mean, you pay, but there's no room to breathe. And, you got a mortgage, you've got car payments, you need a car, you got to get to work, you got to get around, you got to have a place to live. You got to send the kids to school. You got to pack them a lunch. They're teenagers now. They're eating out of house and home. You know how teenagers are. And they want clothes and they want sneakers and they want, they want to have some stuff that they can wear. And it's just everything is a bomb. And I think you're right. I think a lot of it's becoming expensive now to have hot water. And I think people are under so much financial pressure and financial stress because they're stretched to the limit. Credit card debt. There was a story in the Wall Street Journal. Record high. Never in the history of the United States has the average American had as much credit card debt as we do now. And so what's happening, this is now becoming the American way of life. You get a credit card to pay off the credit card. Because, they've got the interest payments, which are killing them because they've, maxed out their credit cards. So what they're doing now, and this is very dangerous, is they'll take a Visa to pay off the MasterCard because the MasterCard was there to pay off the Discover card. Now, that is a very stressful way to live. And I think you're right. I think that explains, one of the reasons why people are angry, people are cranky, people are frustrated, people blow up over the littlest things. And, we have to make a decision. Either we reduce our standard of living, our quality of life, our expectations, and just learn to live within our means. In other words, be poorer and accept it. Or, and this is why I'm with Trump all the way, we start reversing these destructive policies. But my fear, Lisa, is if we don't turn things around and quick, you are going to see the end of the middle class in the United States. It really feels now that the middle class is under tremendous pressure from all the taxes to the high cost of living to everything. It just feels we're being hit from every angle. And I feel financially under siege. We're fine. Kids are healthy. I got a roof over my head. We have 2 cars. We're not lacking for anything. But I just look at my dad. It was easier. It was. And they had money in the bank and I put nothing away for retirement. Grace is going to get mad at me now because I'm spilling the beans about her. We're fine. I don't have a 401k account. Now, we have other financial investments. I'm not saying I'm going to be poor when I retire. But what I'm saying is, people are like, well, I have money left over for, to invest in the stock market or invest in 401k, my 401k portfolio. I'm like, really? How do you do it? I often say this. I will take the kids out to McDonald's or go grocery shopping or whatever it may be. And I drive, or I tank up and I drive around and I look around me and I go, I don't know how other people do it. Because I'm stretching my dollar to the max. Final word to you, Lisa. There's no Mike, there's no final word? Hey Mike, what are you now? The Pope or the Kuhner report? What is this? What is this now? Is a papal bull now? You're the boss now, Mike? Anyway, Lisa, excellent point to everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.